MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.
Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Hello, I'm Mike Barry.
And I'm Bob Bluffield.
And together with Alan Mallyon, we bring you The Grumpy Old Men on Saturday morning between 8 and 10. We take a look back at what's been happening during the week and let's just say discuss it.
Oh yes, we do play some good music as well. That's all here every Saturday morning between 8 and 10 on Seclo Sounds.
When the rains came down in the hollow, playing a new game, laughing and a running, hey, hey, skipping and a jumping in the misty morning fog with our hearts a thumping, and you, my brown-eyed girl, and you, brown-eyed girl. And whatever happened to Tuesday and so slow, gone down the old man with a transistor radio, standing in the sunlight laughing, hiding behind a rainbow's wall, slipping and sliding all along the waterfall with you, my brown-eyed girl. You, my brown-eyed girl. Do you remember when we used to sing sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, just like that? Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la- So hard to find my way. Now that I'm all on my own. I saw you just the other day. My, you have grown. Cast my memory back there, Lord. Sometimes I'm overcome thinking about making love in the green grass behind the stadium with you, my brown-eyed girl. You, my brown-eyed girl. Do you remember when we used to sing?
A very good morning to you. That's Van Morrison and the Brown Eyed Girl here on Secular Sounds Community Radio for Milton Keynes. We are the Grumpy Old Men. I'm Mike Barry.
I'm Bob Bluffield.
I'm Brian White.
And I'm Alan Mallyon. And together we are...
The
Grumpy Old Men.
Yahoo!
Oh, goodness me, and we are grumpy. We're going to be grumpy this morning as well, aren't we? I think one of the things I'd like to start off with this morning is this horrible threat that we've got called Ebola. I mean, it's coming, it's spreading, isn't it? Or are we just panicking?
Aren't we in the silly season for papers?
Well, I think we must be, because to me this strikes it as another bird flu.
Well, no, Ebola is a really nasty ill, and it can cause real problems.
So it's bird
but
flu.
it is. I mean, it's horrible. But the stories about it coming and spreading all over the UK, I think, are slightly exaggerated.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But
We'll see.
but where it is in Africa and where it is around the world, it is horrible and something we ought to be putting a lot of resources into fighting.
But doesn't it just take one person carrying the disease to infect many people?
It's not true of any disease.
Yeah, and we live in such a small world that it only takes one person coming from that part of the world to actually have an unfortunate accident and spread the disease all over London.
Well, they're saying that this morning a Sierra Leone, should I say, athlete has gone missing in Glasgow, and they don't know where he is, but he's been tested for E. coli. It said Ebola. What is it called?
Ebola.
E. coli.
Yeah.
E. coli. That's another horrible.
That as well, yeah. But that came up that they tested him for it
And
prior
found
to
him
coming
negative.
to them. Well, they didn't say.
And there's been 2 tests in the Commonwealth Games, and they've both been negative,
Have they? Right.
which is good news.
Yeah.
But you can understand why the authorities would want to test, but it's highly unlikely that somebody would have had that disease who hasn't come directly from the area where the disease is.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
And travel there is fairly restricted, so the chances of it escaping are relatively low, but there is a chance it will escape, and if it gets out into the wider world, it only takes some contaminated blood to find its way into the food chain somewhere along the line.
But there's a danger between... There's a difference between saying it's dangerous and actually it's going to happen. And I think that's where the papers get it wrong, is they equate there's a possibility of it happening with it's actually happening.
You don't mean newspapers are prone to exaggeration in these circumstances, do you?
Nah, they never.
No. I think somehow you probably,
It's me being cynical.
Yeah, you much malign those little harbingers of wisdom.
Those wonderful journalists.
Wonderful journalists, yes.
They are. They're wonderful. They never exaggerate or actually.
They certainly don't tell lies.
No, they don't tell lies, and they never sacrifice the truth for the sake of a good story, would they?
What I find really amusing is there was a story in the paper this week about Andy Coulson, as former editor who's now in jail, is in the same cell as one of his former reporters who got done under the hacking thing, and they're sitting in the same cell contemplating their errors.
Yes, quite.
Probably writing a book about it.
Well, this is it. Unfortunately, isn't it? They'll write a book and then make a film, and they'll make fortune, won't they? There we are.
Yes.
So we're just wondering whether Trish has got on the Secular Sounds this
Trish is
morning.
having real problems with her equipment.
Yeah, so
And not for the first time, I might say.
well, she did actually call in last week because, in fact, we were somewhat puzzled last week because our main researcher, i.e. hadn't turned up, and I vaguely remember somewhere in the back of my mind that you had mentioned something that you might not be here next week because I'm going to Cumbria.
Yeah, I did say I might not be here because I'm going to Cumbria. In fact, I repeatedly told you that I was going to Cumbria to the Maryport Blues Festival. Yes.
I don't remember that, do you?
Anybody interesting on?
No, I don't.
Yeah, Coco Montana.
Coco Montana.
Yeah, Coco Montana. He was just something else.
Was he?
Thought I was
Good old blues boy.
He drinks a bit of cocoa, does he?
Oh, he does. And he comes from Montana, I think.
Anyway, I was going to say that Trish actually phoned up last week and said that there was sorts of
Morning,
problems.
Trish, if you can hear us.
But yeah, morning, if you can hear us. But the Grumpy Old Men Facebook page seems to be coming along a little bit more now, doesn't it? I put something on last week.
Yes, Grumpy Old Men and Women, we should say.
Oh, I beg your
There's
pardon.
another one.
I beg your pardon,
Grumpy Old
Grumpy Old
Men,
Men.
which is, I think, to do with Victor Meldrew or something.
All right,
Yeah.
Grumpy Old Men.
Grumpy
and
old
women.
men and women, because we
Okay.
like women.
We do, of course we do.
Yeah.
An equal opportunity moan.
Well, we have to be,
Yeah.
don't we? We have to be, because we
Yes.
could be sued, couldn't we?
None of this male-only moaning.
Yeah, there's.
Here we go, male-only moaning.
You're talking about that point, actually. I must point out that all of the comments that come out in this 2-hour show are our own individual comments and not pertaining to Secular Sounds in any shape or form.
He has to say that.
Or any other organisation
or
we
any-
happen to be associated
Or
with.
the views of the female
That's
fraternity
right.
either.
Yes.
Who are solely unrepresented.
It was interesting because
In this male-only bastion of broadcasting.
I think I might have to pull his fader down a
He's-
minute.
he's-
He's
I think
been away.
I think he's been on something.
He's been away for a week and he thinks he's taken over now.
He's
you
out
know.
of control.
He come in here with this Irish accent this morning. I think he must have been cohabiting with the
little people.
travellers.
The little people.
You're talking about the lovely Molly.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's the only Irishman here.
yeah. But I was going to say that on the Grumpy Old Men and Women Facebook page, I actually put a comment about, because I'd watched Kirsty War on on Newsnight interviewing a chap from Israel, an Israeli embassy or an Israeli officer or something. But this guy was actually saying that all of the time the Israelis are actually warning the Palestinians that they're going to come in and they're going to bomb you between 10 and midnight and all this. Just sort of get out of the way and everything else.
Do you think they are?
And well, I don't know, but
Why are you
can only listen to one side of it. But Kirsty she just would not accept this, and she was trying. Oh, it was quite pathetic actually. I was shouting at the radio, or the television, sort of, for goodness sake, listen to what the bloke's saying,
One of the things about, Israel's gone from having basically most of the Western world supporting it to only having one friend left, which is the United States. And part of it is because of the way that they have used their propaganda and media arguments and then carried on doing things that upset people. And one of the dangers is that in this modern world, things that 50 years ago wouldn't have been reported or only reported a long time after, we now see as they happen. And I think Israel's strategy is actually, for somebody who wants to see Israel exist and have security and be a proper democratic state in the Middle East, I think it's actually creating problems for itself 10, 15 years down the line. It's creating a new generation who will want to be anti-Israeli, anti the status quo, and will become the terrorists of the future. And it just seems to be a self-defeating way of actually achieving your objectives of security. And I think, but the problem is, if you criticise the Israeli government, you're deemed to be anti-Israel. And that cannot be right. There are lots of people who want to support Israel, but who cannot stand what this current Israeli government are doing. And to equate this current government's strategy with anti-Israel, I think is a fundamental mistake that the Israelis are making.
I'm not going to disagree with you there, but I think that one of the problems is that we seem to be getting, or it's in my perception, is that we seem to be getting all of the time from the reporting, it's always the Israeli side, and very little of actually Palestinian and the Hamas side of things, because they've got these tunnels that they're using, etc., the ceasefire isn't holding at the moment, unfortunately, regrettably. But
I don't think it ever will it? It never has, never will.
I think it probably will, but I'm not quite sure what the magic ingredient is to it, because it is coming to a stage now where there's a lot of unnecessary blood on both sides.
But you take Gaza. People think Gaza is quite a big place because you see it on them. It's more or less about the size of Milton Keynes.
That's right. It's 30 miles by 7 miles.
And we're 22 by 8.
Yeah.
And so it's not much bigger than the borough of Milton Keynes.
No.
And they've got 1.5 million, nearly 2 million people there, compared to the 250,000 we've got.
Yeah.
And
pretty crowded, isn't it?
So when the Israelis say, get out of this area, where do they go?
That's right.
One of the problems is that the battle has been going on for thousands of years. It's not a new battle. This battle for this piece of land has been the sort of a pivotal point in
what's what the
conflict.
Bible's all about.
Yeah, basically the Bible story tells the story of that conflict, and it's been going on ever since. And when you've got a next door neighbour who's publicly stated that their one objective is to annihilate you from the face of the planet, it makes it very difficult to get on with them.
The trouble is that I think that too much of this is from politicians. I mean, Brian, you grew up in Northern Ireland with the Northern Ireland problems. When I was in Cyprus, there was the hatred from the Greek and the Turkish governments about Cypriots. But the people living on Cyprus, i.e. the Cypriots, got on so well together, it just wasn't true.
There were two things that I saw in the last couple of weeks which gave me hope. One was an Auschwitz survivor who protested against what the Israeli government was doing and said, as an Auschwitz survivor, I've got to stand up and be counted. And the other was a Facebook photograph of a Jewish boy and a Palestinian holding a placard which said, we want to live in peace together, not fight each other. And there are bits of hope around which politicians don't want to listen to. But eventually we'll have to.
Well, I don't think they will actually. I think a lot of people would like to. The normal people don't want this, of course not. But there are extremists on both sides who actually their existence depends on their ability to be able to actually create the hatred and the violence that exists. And it's the only way they get their kudos. Some of these sort of Hamas sort of extremist people. That is the only way they'll get their rocks off, and the same on the Jewish side. You got these extremists that really think that the whole of that part of the world should be cleansed of these terrible Arab people.
Well, there was an Israeli politician who actually said that this week, and that's just as bad as saying that the Jews should be.
So you've got extremists on every side of this equation.
Absolutely.
And I'm just waiting for the Christians to get involved as well, just to add their 10 pence worth in. Which they did, of course, in the distant past with the Crusades.
Well, it's coming up to the 100th anniversary of when Britain actually created those boundaries with the Balfour Declaration in 1917. Right. And the boundaries that they're fighting over are the ones that we created 100 years ago. And it's the anniversary of the First World War next week.
That's right.
And, of course, that was it was our fighting that led to the current boundaries. It was in British interest, and we made a promise to both sides, which we couldn't keep.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is a little known fact. Educated people obviously know about it, but the general population actually don't know it.
And the news media don't know about it.
Well, it's not a good enough news story, is it? Because I think it would pull it down a bit, But moving on slightly, because 17 minutes past 8 o'clock here in Milton Keynes, you're listening to Secular Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes. We're broadcasting, of course, from our studios at Pear Tree Bridge, courtesy of Interaction, who are our partners in crime. Humans driving life on Earth to extinction. After 3.5 billion years of ups and downs, it's the end of the world as we know it, and it's all humanity's fault. This is research. This is Professor Dirzo. He's warned of the vicious circle of animal extinctions, and he reckons that since the year 1500, more than 320 bird and animal species have vanished, and populations that are 5 million remaining have fallen on average 20%, he says. So do you think we are killing ourselves? Silence.
I think we are, yeah, to an extent, but I don't think we're going to be extinct, as that suggests, in how many years?
A bit of scaremongering, I think, because they don't actually, they don't say it's going to happen in 2020.
Haven't we been saying this forevermore, for forever?
Well, Professor Durso said that where human density is high, you get high rates of defaunation, high incidences of rodents, and thus high levels of pathogens, which increase the risk of disease transmission. It can be a vicious circle. Well, there's a certain amount of truth in that, isn't there? That you don't go anywhere in the UK with you're not more than 6 foot away from a rat.
I don't believe that, to be honest.
Really?
No.
Blimey.
We'd be seeing rats everywhere, wouldn't we? Surely.
But don't you see them?
Occasionally, but not that often.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, but
there are rats around, but you don't see them that often. And
no,
I think if somebody came up with that argument with spiders, that's a whole different ballgame.
But again, it's one of these ones where if you actually take away the hype of that story, there is a real issue there, and it's about how we interact with the planet. And if we actually are serious about protecting the planet and about living a sustainable future, and that's the difference. It's a choice between a sustainable future where we actually live in harmony with the planet and an unsustainable future where we actually cause problems for ourselves. There was a lovely climate change scientist who said, the world is not going to end, humanity might, but the world will carry on. It can deal with bigger problems than this.
Which is true, isn't it? It's nature.
Right, yeah,
we can't fight nature.
No.
We talk about climate change and things like that, and they reckon that the deforestation in places like Brazil and Argentina and things, are causing different.
Actually, there's a worse one that nobody talks about,
and
that's the trees in Siberia.
Yeah,
and that is actually a far worse problem. If those trees go, then we all talk about the Amazon, and I'm not trying to say that's right. It's not. But there are other areas of the world that are actually suffering just as much, and Siberia is one of them. And we do that at our peril as well.
Well, I thought when I went through France, mange two. Hello, Carol and Andy. Bonjour to you too. When I drove through France 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was amazed at the amount of forests that there are there. I mean, we talk about the New Forest in this country and the Thetford Forest and that sort of thing, but out there, I mean, there's miles upon miles upon miles of forest. And the thought struck me, if the French decided that they were going to cut all these trees down to make furniture or something, we would be in a real peculiar situation, wouldn't we? Because of the work that trees do.
Yeah, but you think about Milton Keynes, the story that we planted 23 million trees to create the city. And I think if you actually do it, you can put people's modern way of living and trees and that together if you plan it properly.
If you plan
and
it properly,
did it.
yes. Well,
I was reading yesterday, actually, we've got more trees now than we had in not just here, but in the... Well, no, it must be just here. It's about Britain, this book. More trees here than there was in 1982.
It's quite likely, certainly in Milton Keynes, yes.
The government has promoted the New Forest in Leicestershire and around their National Forest.
Yeah.
And Milton Keynes and other cities that have planted trees. So it is something that we recognise, but in comparison to the trees that are disappearing in the Amazon and in Siberia and other places, it's a minuscule response.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, because you talk about the Nottingham Forest and things like that, the football team, but I mean that in itself pales into insignificance when you drive through France, because their forests are forests.
France is twice as big as England.
I'm not. Of course, it is.
Is it 4 times?
4, yeah. It's
less population.
Certainly bigger. That's right. But I mean, the comment I was making was the fact that if they decided to cut all their trees down, to make furniture for IKEA or something, then we would be in trouble. We would be in trouble.
Well, it'd probably just add to the overall effect, wouldn't it?
What, of IKEA furniture?
Well,
flat pack furniture.
The more problems we have putting it together. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I had some flat pack furniture delivered on Thursday and I put it together, but it went together.
Well, my shelves, which I meant to be able to put together in 30 minutes with one person, 2 of us took 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's because they were made in China and the slots didn't fit, the pegs didn't fit into the slots properly at a bend.
Nothing to do with your competence at all.
Well, that as well.
Yes, I think it's the trouble now.
It's those square pegs and round holes that are the problem.
You've been talking about that again, haven't you?
How are you getting on with your fight with the car company?
I spoke to them yesterday. They won't play ball. So I said, well, under the Sale of Goods Act, a turbo should not fail at 22,000 miles. Therefore, you'll be hearing from my solicitors.
Oh.
And he sort of went a bit quiet. So he said, well, I don't think they'll pay. He said, because it's out of warranty. He said, forget the warranty. Warranty is to protect you, not to protect the customer. I said, the fact that you expect a turbo to extend further than that for the life of the car I think is reasonable. I don't think any court would throw it out. So we shall see, won't we?
Do you know, it's interesting.
I'm getting a Witch magazine, actually. I'm going to let Witch fight it.
Yeah, it's interesting because a friend of mine was telling me last night that he's just had his car serviced. He's got an Audi and he's just had it serviced.
Same company,
two new cars, 2 new tyres on it. And he'd filled up the questionnaire at the end of it about the customer service, etc. And he had a phone call from this guy who said, just like to query a couple of things, because you did put down, you sort of, the receptionist, you didn't give her full marks and all this sort of thing. And what was the problem? And he said, nothing really wrong to do with her, but he said she told me that that everything would be done in an hour. So he said, I went for a walk for an hour and came back. He said, but it's 2 hours later before it was ready for me. He said, it's a silly little thing. Had she said to me it's going to be 2.5 hours, he said, I would have gone for a 2.5 hour walk rather than an hour walk, So right, they had a long chat and about customer service things and all this, and the outcome of it was that the guy said, well, he said, my job is to actually ensure that you are a happy customer, and would it make you a happy customer if we reduced your bill by 50%? So they reduced his bill by 50% and credited his account or card back with 50%. That's pretty good. I mean, that's good customer service.
Well, they're saying, Volkswagen is saying, because they pay for the parts and because the dealership paid half the bill, or they halved the bill, I shouldn't any money change hands, but they claim it back for Volkswagen anyway. That was good enough. I said, well, no, I'm still £400 out of pocket, plus I had to cancel my holiday for something that shouldn't have happened. And I'm going to fight the cause. My wife doesn't think I should, but I think I should, because Yeah, there's too much of this happening. You know, £2,000 part should not fail after 22,000 miles, especially when the car's been serviced properly, etc., to their specification.
I think the thing is, you're very lucky, really, that you don't have to pay the whole 2,000.
Well, I am, but that's neither here nor there, is it?
Well, yeah,
You know,
I think you should be, because you're being lucky.
3 weeks out of warranty.
So that's a warranty. I mean, they have to draw a line in the sand somewhere, don't they?
That's your opinion.
Oh, I mean,
But
I think you're using your skills of diplomacy and articulation to your advantage in your negotiations with Volkswagen. I think the way you're approaching this gives them little choice but to surrender under the under the massive onslaught of your words.
Are you going to be the solicitor that writes the letter for him then?
Oh, I will.
You know?
I will.
Yes, Mallyon and Co.
You talk about main dealers. I went to a former BMW dealer in Milton Keynes and had my car serviced. And I said I'd wait for it, and a couple of hours later, I was still sitting there. And eventually, the guy come up and he said, "Oh, the car's done." So I said, "Oh, really? That's interesting." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, it hasn't been moved from where I parked it." And he said, "Yes, it has. It's been into the work." I said, "No, it hasn't. Don't give me." I said, "I've been sitting here watching it, and it's there. It's not been moved." And he didn't know what to say. And then he tried to shuffle a load of papers. And, "Oh, I've got the wrong person."
Well,
and then suddenly my car was then moved into the workshop.
Probably had got the wrong person.
No, he hadn't. This has happened before. And when I had a Ford many years ago, I actually saw a mechanic with his family going shopping at lunchtime in my car.
Really?
In Bletchley. Yeah.
Do you know you are such an unfortunate character in life?
Not really. Not really.
Well, I mean, these things...
I've been around.
You've been around, yeah.
I think you're getting at me, Michael.
It's 27 minutes past 8 o'clock here in Milton Keynes. You're listening to Seclo Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes.
Yes, the 1980s are back.
Hi, I'm Dave and I play the music from the 1980s.
Hi, I'm Charlotte and I play the music from the 1990s.
Classic 90s grooves.
So join us each and every Saturday between 10 and midday.
For double decades on Seclo Sounds. Seclo Sounds.
Hi, this is Mike Johnson, your conductor for the gospel train Sweet Inspiration. You can get on board every Saturday between 4 and 6 p.m. online at seclosounds.org. I'll be taking you on a journey through the many forms of gospel music, and we'll stop by the church on the way. That's Sweet Inspiration with me, Mike Johnson, every Saturday between 4 and 6 p.m. on Seclo Sounds. Together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station. Hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on. Hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on.
really is.
The
Save
lights
the elephant.
are on.
Save the elephant.
Save
Okay,
the
Bob.
elephant.
We shall
Sloopy.
save the elephant.
Sloop John
What is
B.
he on about?
Yes, there you go. Secular Sounds, good morning. You are listening to the Grumpy Old Men, although there's a certain amount of frivolity which I shall get rid of right now. Our sense of smell is ruined by junk food. I could not agree more. Eating too much junk food is bad for your sense of smell.
What's the sense of
A
smell?
high-fat diet is linked to major structural and functional changes in the nasal system, according to research. I love this thing. They do experiments on poor little mice, and they found that those on a high-fat diet were less able to recognise a particular odour because they lost 50% of the brain cells that recognise these signals. So they went out and they got McDonald's and Kentucky and all the rest of it, and they fed these poor little mice it, and then they said, well, can't smell anything.
Well, Jamie Oliver's now saying they're putting this stuff in
The ammonia.
The ammonia, and they've changed their processing methods, apparently.
To be fair, that was McDonald's in America.
Yes.
Elsewhere in the world, they've not been doing that for a long time.
I think we should say there are other fast food chains as well,
Well, the others have stopped doing
The
it.
others stopped doing it several years ago, but McDonald's still put the ammonia into their meat in America.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Oliver is now doing a campaign to get them to stop it.
Well, there was a report in the paper last week, I think, about chicken, and they reckon that the chickens that we buy, if we saw behind the scenes, you'd never eat another chicken in your
That
life.
goes for a lot of food processing.
Well, of course it does. Of course it does, you know.
We'd all become vegetarians overnight.
Well, if you went into a sausage factory, I absolutely guarantee your enthusiasm for sausages would be somewhat less than it would be before you started.
My mother was a customs officer, and one of the companies she had was Mars and down in Slough.
Yeah.
And she went in and showed how the chocolate was actually made, and she never ate a single chocolate from that day that
Really?
she saw it. It was something, she said, it put her off chocolate for the rest of her life.
Also, tea bags. Tea bags are often the sweepings off the floor of the tea leaves.
I'm
the
going to
dust,
talk
the
about tea bags.
But actually, look, come on, let's get
I've seen
real.
that in Sri Lanka.
How much sweeping off the floor can you actually do?
Well, not a lot.
I mean,
Well,
if you
dunno,
work
it's-
out how many tons of tea bags you need,
Yeah.
it's like the old thing about Chinese restaurants serving dog. Have you got any idea about the price of dog?
You cut a dog is a lot more money than a cut of pig.
It was certainly true in the early days of tea bags that it was the low-grade leaves that we used.
Yeah.
But with the growth of tea bags and the sheer variety we've got now, then you have a whole range now that.
Yeah.
But it was true when they first came in, and certainly the mass, that the low-grade leaves are the ones that are used.
I don't
Not-
know. You know,
Have you been to a tea plantation?
I'm supposed to be producing this program.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
And you've led me right.
That's really confusing, Mike.
You've led me right onto the fact that a secret.
Mike, Mike, put your shirt back on, Mike.
All right, okay. The secret of a perfect cup of tea is to leave the bag in for 25 seconds. Because gone are the days of letting the tea brew for minutes to get the right taste and the colour. Experts say. Experts. All right, listen.
And they're right, of course.
They've advised that the brewing time is now less than half a minute for all the major brands of tea bags sold in Britain, where we drink 165 million cups of tea a day. 165 million
We
cups
get
of
for
tea
a
a day.
fair
Well, I suppose you do here, don't we?
Yeah.
I'm responsible for a fair proportion of that.
Right,
You
cheaper.
find only
This,
drink two of them on this
you're
show.
talking about sweeping. Cheaper, smaller tea leaf particles allow the tannins to work faster than bigger leaves used for loose leaf tea, says Martin Isaac of the consumer site. He tested the top brands: Tetley's, PG, Thai Food, Twinings, and Yorkshire, which account for more than 80% of sales. Rather than let the tea brew for 2 or 3 minutes, he found that it now needs less than half a minute. And he's actually right. I've done this now. I put tea bags in.
Is this
Makes
in a
it-
cup or is this in a pot?
No, this is in a cup. This is tea bags, all right? This is tea bags. Listen to what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but you can put tea bags in a pot, can't you?
You can,
People
but
do.
leave them in there for 25 seconds, that's all.
Okay.
Any more than that, and you've lost it.
Okay.
Manufacturers suggest leaving the tea bags in for anything between 40 seconds and 5 minutes, with the proviso that drinkers vary according to their personal preference. Now, this is something, isn't it? Because it's personal preference. I know some people that like the tea bag shown to the cup.
My parents were like that.
Yeah, that's right. And my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, she used to... she didn't, but she almost hung the tea bags out on the line to dry and then reused them several times.
Well, they used to, didn't they?
You know, because it was, I can't waste it. Might be
Well, I'll
another
tell you
cup
what,
of tea.
you'd never drink tea again if you went to a tea plantation and seen what is between the rows of bushes, all the human effluent, it's awful.
But that doesn't matter. I mean, it's the same as tomatoes and
Of
things
course
like
it
that,
is.
isn't it? You know, I mean, it's
What you see, you don't worry about, do you?
if you went into any restaurant, you know, and get into the kitchens of a restaurant, and I've been to quite a few. I mean, and I worked at Woburn Abbey, for instance. You know, and I went in the kitchen there several times.
The chef got fired for putting somebody in the oven.
Well, you know, yeah, it's you know. But
Well, a friend of mine used to be a sous chef in a very well-known restaurant in Pall Mall, and he told me of a case of they used to keep their consommé in buckets on the floor, and a mouse got in this and drowned, and a waiter served it up thinking it was a garnish to the soup.
I bet it went out. I bet people were clamouring for it. Waiter, some more.
I was in another well-known eating establishment in the theatre district a few years ago. Somebody claimed they got a mouse in their food.
Did anybody see that Domino's
of
pizza where they sent out a pizza which is all mouldy?
No.
And apparently the person was really angry. And they went, oh. And now they're investigating that particular branch.
Was this here?
Somewhere in the UK, yeah.
Oh, not in...
Not in Milton Keynes, no.
Yeah.
But there was a real problem that they sent out a pizza that was mouldy. How can you do that?
Well, somebody probably didn't look at it, did they? Or maybe the people didn't know. They didn't know what it was.
Do you throw away bread when you look at it and it's got the little mould on the edge of the corner of it? Do you throw that away?
Not the whole loaf.
No?
No.
I'm very wary of eating anything with mould on because I'm allergic to penicillin.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Penicillin will kill me.
Would it really?
Which is why I wear a medic alert bracelet,
Good Lord.
and which is Milton Keynes, based in Milton Keynes now.
Yes.
They're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
But so I'm very wary of any food that goes off simply because of that fear.
Is that amoxicillin? Is that class as well? Is amoxicillin the same?
I don't know.
It's not penicillin, though. No.
Is it not? Is it not just a brand?
No,
I
no.
don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, okay, then you just ask because
Perhaps Alan will tell us. Amoxicillin, is that penicillin?
Penicillin.
the
It's the same.
the news on the news this morning they were talking about statins again.
Oh, what?
You know, because they reckon that they can't. The medical profession can't make their mind up. You know.
No, it's worrying, isn't it? I take statins.
Just
You
like
take
this. I take
statins.
statins. Yeah,
You
it's
take
quite,
statins?
quite worrying actually.
2 out of 4 take statins.
They also now say that an aspirin a day could trigger a heart attack. A daily dose of aspirin can cause a heart
I
attack
thought that was actually
instead
helping
of protecting
prevent
it. That's right.
That was half an aspirin.
Well,
wasn't it?
the findings mean that millions of adults who take the pill to ward off heart attacks and strokes are unwittingly raising their chances of suffering from one. Scientists have discovered a gene which, when combined with the painkiller, doubles the risk of having a heart attack. Nearly a quarter of adults carry this specific gene. And it means that about 1 in 100 with the gene who take the wonder drug, i.e. aspirin, may suffer from heart problems. I mean, this is quite worrying because I've got a friend of mine who's had a triple bypass and takes half an aspirin every day.
That's half an aspirin. But
Not half an
perhaps
aspirin,
it's
yeah,
the
but-
dosage is a key factor.
What's quite worrying is that you get these research stories, and they're obviously for a particular reason. But what they do is they destroy trust in whole branches of medicine and whole ways of our relationship with doctors. And it's very worrying because each research that comes out and contradicts the other, you stop believing anything. And that is actually very dangerous for a lot of people's health and a lot of people's belief in a lot of institutions, which actually we need to have a civilised society.
And this is the problem, as you say, isn't it? Because once you've lost the faith in them and the trust, then where do you actually go? You know, because it's
I know, yeah.
It's very.
But we're
peculiar.
getting these stories almost on a weekly basis now, aren't we? 1 minute you can take this, next minute you
Well,
can't.
we're into August, so it's got to be a reversal of July's.
Well, yes.
I don't. What gets me? I mean, I'm not overly worried about the fact of butter's good for you 1 minute, then it's bad for you, and potatoes are good for you and bad for you, and eggs are good for you and bad for you. That I don't mind. It's drugs that are manufactured by human beings.
So make an awful lot of money out of.
Yes, you've got to take statins because they're good for you. No, don't take them. The side effects will kill you. Or whatever. That's what worries me a little bit because then, where do you get the truth out of that?
The lack of consistency. But then again, that's what NICE is supposed to do, isn't it? They're supposed to
Well,
provide.
if you believe what NICE tells you half the time.
Well, again,
it's
NICE
unnice.
is actually a very good organisation. The problem comes with what it's being presented with. And if this research is contradicting what it's actually last time, then where does it stand?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Apparently, they've the medical profession have withdrawn part of the statement that it was made. I'm not sure which part, probably the fact, but the outcome of the interview was the fact that if you are worried about it, then go and talk to your GP. But I don't really have a lot of faith in that.
The GP's probably reading the same reports.
Yes, and the GP.
Yeah, my faith in GPs is somewhat limited.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think mine is good actually. She's a sort of locum at my practice, but I've found she's done things, found things about, like when I went to the sleep apnea clinic, I was getting very tired and I was getting a bit worried about it, years ago now, and she sent me to a sleep clinic. Now, a lot of doctors wouldn't recognise that, and this is one of the problems with sleep apnea, is that people have been killed because doctors haven't recognised it in their patients. There was a case of a lorry driver who killed a young lad in a car because he fell asleep at the wheel, and he'd been to his doctor the week before, and this was his defence was. The doctor just said he was, I think he was, I don't know what the reason was, but it wasn't sleep apnea, and he hadn't even recognised this. And he did some research and found out himself what it caused it.
Well,
and he's now campaigning for
I
it.
used to have tremendous faith in the Newport Pagnell Medical Centre until my wife, who got a little thing under one of her fingernails, so she went to the chemist actually, see whether she could get some cream or whatever for it. And the chemist looked at it, so he said, no, he said, you've got a fungal infection and you need to see the doctor because he'll give you some antibiotics. So she phoned the practice in Newport Pagnell, and she has got an appointment now. This happened on Wednesday last week. She now has an appointment next Friday.
Oh no.
So her hand will probably have dropped off by then. So have to take her to a second-hand shop. Actually, apparently mothers, are more likely to turn to Google. I'll turn his microphone off because he's making so much noise. More likely to turn to Google or their mothers rather than their doctors, and that's for advice on a sick child. Again, a study has revealed many do not want to bother their GP for fear that they will be fobbed off or find it hard to make an appointment. Two of the points we've just actually raised, isn't it? Parents also admitted that they are likely to trust their mum over a rash or high temperature as their doctor. Owen Mitchell's solicitors, which commissioned the poll, said people rarely see the same doctor at a surgery, let alone an appointment with their actual GP. As a result, our reliance on our local doctor is falling, and it seems we're turning to somebody closer. And 1 in 5 of the 2,000 polls said that the first port of call would be a doctor, 20% named their mums, and 26% the internet. I think that the internet, though, however, is very, very dangerous for people. You get a bit of a pain and you think, I'll look on the internet and see what it is. And then you come away thinking, I've got days to live, because it's something, and you don't know what you're talking about.
But again, it comes down to common sense and moderation, doesn't it? Yes, you use your family because you've got experience in your family of these. That's where you learn a lot of things from. So having responsibility for your own health is an important thing. But most of the GPs we've got in this country are really good. And it's only the odd example which the newspapers exaggerate. And if you actually look at what our doctors do in, day out, compare that with many other countries, we forget how lucky we are to have an NHS.
Oh, I think there's no argument there. I think the NHS is a fantastic institution, but it's too big for itself.
It's becoming private, isn't it? It's on the way, I think, don't you? What do you think, Brian?
Well, I've got to be careful there because otherwise I'll expose my political prejudices.
Well, we know your political prejudices, aren't we? Everybody knows.
But I think anybody who actually uses the NHS at the moment will see that the current reforms just aren't working.
That's right.
And what should have happened is that the people should be challenging our politicians and the senior people in the NHS to get it back to what it should be, which is giving advice and medicine free at the point of delivery.
Exactly. But the thing is, the beast is too big, isn't it? It's the biggest employer in the world.
Is it now?
Well, it ranks up alongside the Chinese army or something.
But the point, Mike, is that the fragmentation that's going on at the moment is what's causing the problem. And if we can actually have much more holistic way of actually looking at things, rather than reform after reform after reform, which actually just destroys morale, get back to the basics, get back to actually looking at best practices across the country, then we can actually have a health service that we can believe in and support.
But how do we do that with the size of the beast?
Well, it's not so much the size of the beast, it's the way that we're actually dismantling it at the moment. We're fragmenting it. So we're actually creating more and more layers, more and more silos, rather than actually having a proper funded hospital system and the GP system and specialist system. And that's what we should be doing.
Well, this is the trouble with governments, isn't it? They tinker, don't they? They tinker with everything, and the whole gist of what it's all about disappears.
I'm going to disagree with you there totally. I don't think it's governments at all. I think it's the civil service. You know, because I think a lot of the time we blame politicians. We blame politicians, you know, but it's the civil servants behind those politicians.
We remain the same, of course, no matter what government.
Well, this is exactly the point, you know.
Yeah.
And
I do think in this particular case, the reforms that Andrew Lansley put in 2012, which were political, haven't helped in the matter.
Oh, yeah, I think this all the way through. I mean, it's a little bit like Gove, you know, in the education side of things. Yeah. I mean, I personally think that the guy did a great deal for education and the kids in this country.
Bright blood.
You know, and it's a great shame that Mr. Cameron's moved him on, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm reading a book by him at the moment called 7711 or something. What's it called?
77?
It's about terrorism, really, and the way we're largely ignoring it in this country. It's quite a well-written book, actually.
I think it would be. It would be because we do ignore it. But back to the National Health Service, you know, I mean, I think that I don't know how you could control it and get it back to its normal.
There's far too many managers, isn't there?
Well, it's not. Yeah,
well, again, it is about this fragmentation, and if we can actually do some consolidation and actually put back into the hands of the professionals.
That's right.
And actually get a lot of this mismanagement out, then you can actually have a health service that's working for the benefit of people. At the moment,
cottage hospital.
we are actually managing the health service in a way that actually is the bean counters who are doing it, rather than the looking at the interests of patients.
I think that's absolutely true, yeah.
But against that, you know, I mean, several years ago, a GP was, and still is, a very respected profession, but they weren't highly paid at all. But now GPs are, in fact, highly paid professionals, and they're beginning to turn around and say, we don't want to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You know, we want to work a little bit less than that. And look at consultants as well. You know, I mean, if I ever come back on this earth again, I'm going to be a consultant.
What is a consultant? You know, what is the meaning of the word?
Well, they are the professionals at the top of their tree, aren't they? In their particular field of medicine.
But again, we look at the NHS and you see some of the consultants that are actually doing some brilliant jobs across the NHS. And we don't comment about the fact that they're committed to actually their patients and to the system. And therefore and what we see are the one or two or the few that are actually out for themselves. And I think that is part of the problem, is that we focus on some of the things that are bringing the NHS into disrepute. Because one of the strategies that's going on at the moment is to undermine confidence in the NHS so they can bring private money in. But again, I think it's important that we actually get back to those basic values of the NHS. It's about people. It's about people having this services available at the point of delivery, free of charge, paid through our tax system.
Well, I mean, look what was going on at Mid Staffordshire, and it was just being allowed to continue, wasn't it? Nothing was done about it. No, I don't think any heads rolled in the end, because the guy that was the chief there has been moved on to another hospital, and he's taking up another appointment.
But again, there are you can overmanage a response. Yes, what happened there was wrong, but you get mistakes and problems in any organisation. It's how you deal with it that matters, and to overreact and same with Shipman, where they stopped single practice GPs. Again, that's part of the issue.
Bit of a knee-jerk reaction, isn't it, really?
Well, no, again, one of the problems with that was that there was lots of GPs who weren't keeping up with the technical improvements and improvements in medicine. And again, getting practices, you actually improve the interaction and get better service. So I think there are really good things that you need to do, but the fundamental is stop the fragmentation and start to build an NHS that's about people, not about the government's bottom line.
But who's going to do that?
Well, I think it starts at the top.
It's wonderful if we could solve the problem, but we can't, can we?
Well, it doesn't look like it, does it?
And I think that the bigger it gets, you're probably right, Brian. If it did start to fragment itself and to go into sort of managed in local areas, but they've tried that as well, didn't they? I mean, they tried to sort of have local national health authorities, etc. I mean, because they keep changing the rule all the time, don't they?
And that's part of the problem, is that the rules keep changing. But if you get primary care right, your GP, and you're dealing with preventative medicine, and you get your hospitals right, and one of the problems they're trying to do is to say, you've got to have a big area for a hospital. No, you don't. You have to have the hospital for the area of the people, where the people are. And so I think it's important that we actually stand up and say, this is the kind of health service we want.
Yeah. Well, that's what we'll have to do.
We will.
We'll have to do
on our page.
Can I see if you can remember this one? In Milton Keynes, before we had a hospital, all they had on a big plot of land was a great big question mark.
It was a question mark, wasn't it? Yeah,
Didn't they have a big sign saying Milton Keynes is dying for a hospital?
Yeah, they did, but there was the
one of the
big
debates that's going on at the moment. I was speaking to an ambulance man a couple of days ago, who was an ambulance driver before the hospital was built, and he used to say about the people who died in his ambulance trying to get to Northampton or trying to get to Stoke Mandeville.
Really?
And he's saying if they bring back what they're proposing for Bedford and Milton Keynes, more people will die, because he can remember them dying in his... And his real anger is that that's been forgotten.
Yeah.
And so if we want a hospital in Milton Keynes that does everything, and what my fear is that they'll suddenly save the A&E and then destroy all the other services. But we need a hospital in Milton Keynes that looks after the people of Milton Keynes. Bedford need a hospital that looks after the people of Bedford.
Well,
and it's about, let's start with what people need, let's start with the actual services, and then work out what's the best way of supporting it.
The thing is, we're jumping around, we're pushing ourselves all different ways, aren't we? Because nowadays you can, consultants and clinicians have to publish their, the amount of people they've saved and the amount of people that have died and all sort of, and you can actually choose as well. If you want to go in for a hip operation, you can look at the consultants and the clinicians at Milton Keynes and say, well, actually, I think that I would stand a better chance of going to Bedford, so you can opt to go to Bedford.
Last Saturday when I was here, my son had a fit and
that's right,
cut his head open.
But he's fine now, isn't he?
He's fine now.
That's good,
but he didn't want to have a choice of which hospital to go in. He wanted to be taken to the nearest hospital, and luckily Milton Keynes Hospital were there. They were very good, and they dealt with him within a couple of hours. But this idea that, we'll have a choice and we'll have all the rest of it, it's nonsense. It's about what you want, something local that's actually going to help people and deliver proper medical services at the point they need it to people when they want, when they can use it.
Yeah, but again, though, but it's like women have an opportunity for either a natural birth or what do you call it? When they
water birth.
No, when they
Nasal birth.
No, when they bring it out, when they cut it
Cesarean?
out.
Oh, cesarean.
Cesarean, that's right. Sorry, totally forgotten the word then. But women have a
That's
choice
why we need
now.
a grumpy old woman in there.
I don't think so.
Oh, no,
I don't think so.
But they because it's almost a designer baby, because I want the baby's birthday to be next Tuesday.
Well, it's got to that with the people with money, isn't it?
I don't know. Anyway, I don't think we're ever going to solve the problem over the National Health Service, although it's brilliant.
We have to if we want a proper future for this country.
Well, going on about talking about Milton Keynes and Bedford, how much money is this costing in consultancy?
£3 million.
Well, there you go, which is a nonsense, isn't it? It could be keep the two hospitals as they are and improve them with that money.
Wow.
You can see why when you're the director of a hospital, the chief executive, etc. You've got to actually justify your decision-making process, and sometimes bringing consultants in to sort of justify a decision-making process is a reasonable way of doing it. But £3 million does seem excessive, just to decide whether the local community would like to keep a hospital.
Well, sandwiches as well.
Well, they've got 11. They've got 11 options, none of which actually addresses the fundamental problem, which is that the government statistics on population for this area are not recognising it's a growing area, and therefore it's totally underfunded. That's the fundamental problem, but none of those options address that.
And £3 million is is peanuts. I mean, I know when I worked for BT and they decided to change the logo. I mean, it cost them something like £5 million to get the consultants in to change the logo. So.
But if we're £57 million short, £3 million is quite a considerable bit of that.
That's right. Yes. They were talking about money. They were talking about the games yesterday. About the cost of the Empire Games. Commonwealth Games, beg your pardon. About Manchester, who had the games. When did Manchester have the games? 92, is it? Or something? They've only just finished paying off the debt.
But
again, yesterday.
But again, I went to the Manchester Commonwealth Games and it was
pouring. 92?
2002.
2002, right.
Oh, or was it 2000? I can't remember. So, it'll be 2000. And it was really good games, apart from the rain. It was torrential rain then, but the actual games themselves, and before I went to the velodrome when it had just opened, but the facilities that Manchester got, plus the regeneration that Manchester got, and all the other benefits, well, that money was a really good investment in the regeneration of Manchester. I remember what Manchester was like in the 70s, and it was going downhill, and it was urban decay. What that whole process of bidding for the Olympics and bidding for the Commonwealth Games did was to regenerate Manchester, give it a sense of pride again, give it an actual attraction for investment, for companies coming in. And it was a whole economic development strategy that actually worked for the people of Manchester. So if you focus on just the negative amount of money that it cost, you ignore all the benefits which far outweigh what that money cost. And I think it was a really good investment for the people of Manchester.
Awful lot in Glasgow, haven't they? As well.
Same in Glasgow.
Well, that's right. That is actually absolutely right. It's 1 minute away from 9 o'clock here in Milton Keynes. You're listening to Seclo Sounds Community Radio for Milton Keynes, broadcasting from our studios at Pear Tree Bridge.
Tom Scudamore is back.
We're back on a new day with new features and new characters.
Every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
The best time of the day show is a show for young people, combining oddball personalities. We will be having headlines read by Harry, dealing with your problems in agony art, and talking philosophical matters.
Every Thursday at 7 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
Yes, the 1980s are back.
Hi, I'm Dave and I play the music from the 1980s.
Hi, I'm Charlotte and I play the music from the 1990s.
Classic 90s grooves.
So join us each and every Saturday between 10 and midday.
For double decades on Seclo Sounds. Seclo Sounds.
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.
Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station. Wild thing, you make my heart sing. You make everything groovy. Wild thing. Wild thing, I think I love you. But I wanna know for sure. So come on and hold me tight. I love you. Wild thing, you make my heart sing. You make everything groovy. Wild thing. Wild thing, I think you move me. But I wanna know for sure. So come on and hold me tight. You move me. Wild thing, you make my heart sing. You make everything groovy. Wild thing, come on, wild thing. Shake it, wild thing.
The Trogs, of course, some Wild Thing here on Seclo Sounds. Community Radio for Milton Keynes, I'm Mike Barry.
I'm Bob Bluffield.
I'm Brian White.
I'm Alan Mallyon.
And together we are...
Grumpy old
man.
Yes, indeed. I was wondering which one to take out. I think we'll take out this one and get rid of it. Poor old Harriet Harman, she's been accused of breaking parliamentary rules by underpaying staff in her constituency office. Because apparently she's employed a trainee caseworker in her Camberwell and Pakenham office on a salary of £17,000 a year. But this is £2,000 below the amount set for the role by the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority. Wow.
She should have known that, shouldn't she?
Well, her defence is saying that she's taken this person on as a trainee for 6 months, and if they come up to standard, then they'll get the job and they'll be paid the standard rate. I can't see anything wrong with that at all.
I see nothing wrong with that.
No. She's employing somebody, isn't she?
I think big non-story.
One of the things that used to really annoy me about expenses for MPs is that you'd employ people, so that 17 grand would be counted as an MP's expense.
Yeah.
So the impression was that it was going into your pocket rather than paying your staff.
Yeah.
And it used to really annoy me that the vast majority of expenses that people talk about was actually salaries of people who should be employed by the Houses of Parliament and by the Independent, That would actually take out a lot of the friction about MPs' expenses.
As would having a proper purchase scheme for duck houses.
I was going to say that.
You know, I think interest-free loans to MPs
I got into trouble for over MPs' expenses because I got a letter from the person saying you've done nothing wrong, you're all in line. And I went home, and then it gave me grief that I didn't actually claim for a garden and doing all the things I should have done. So he can't win.
He can't win, no.
So you haven't got a duck house?
No. Actually, sorry to be
he's a bit evasive here, Alan.
This evasiveness is driving me crackers.
As the pedantic fact checker here, the duck house was never actually allowed. It was actually one of the things that was refused. The MP who claimed it actually tried to get it, and it was actually rejected. But never let that little fact spoil a good story.
He was a funny old boy, wasn't he? Bit eccentric, was he not?
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
But all the rest of it, and the criminality, I joke, but the people who did actually break the rules should have gone to jail, and some of them were friends of mine, and I thought it was wrong what people did, and
There you go. I mean, I think in any circumstance where you've got the fact that expenses can be fiddled.
You know, Bike and BT.
Yeah, well, you know, it's just...
And was it another well-known radio station?
Yes, indeed. That's right. But do you know that women who are better educated than their husbands are no longer more likely to get divorced because their spouses feel threatened by their success, say researchers. A new study has shown that from 1950 to 2009, marriages between educational equals were more stable than those in which the husband was better educated. However, between 2005 and 2009, more than 60% of newlyweds consisted of a wife with a higher level of education. That was an increase of 35% since the early 50s. For those who married in the 90s and later, a wife's education advantage was no longer associated with an increased risk of divorce. Where did they get these things from?
Well, there's a slight problem there, because in the 40s and 50s, if you were a woman, you didn't get into university.
You didn't. You had to stay at home and bring the kids up.
And again, my mother was capable of going to university, but she didn't go because her father kept the money for her younger brother, who in the end wasn't up to going to university. No. So there was a real issue about that survey, because women in the 50s just didn't go to university. They do now, and they should. And it's one of the great success stories of gender equality is that we now have far more women going to university, far more contribution than there used to be.
Don't all married men know that women are more intelligent? Isn't that a default setting?
No, the ones who don't get divorced.
Yes.
Yes. I'm just thinking about that. I'm just thinking about the complications.
Well, there are complications.
I mean, we have to...
It's a subtle comment.
We have to... It was a very subtle comment, and I got it, but obviously it went straight over the top of Bob's head, you know.
I was just contemplating what to say.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it? Any man who... a very good friend of mine, you know, says, Mike, why can't we understand women, you know? And I said to him, well, you know, the man who comes out with a formula to understand women is going to be hero worship for life. You know?
Well, we've all seen a cartoon now where there's a guy thumbing through his book about 10 feet high, and he said, don't worry, that's only the index.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, we better not upset our lady listener, because they'll be on the phone in a minute, or they'll be sending off to Ofcom, you know, saying that the programme is...
Well, we could be accused of being misogynistic.
We could be.
What do we make this thing about? Is this local authorities band together to back supermarket levy worth £400 million about imposing a Tesco tax to save the high street? Large supermarkets should be taxed to help pay for improvements to local shopping areas, a group of councils has said. Derby City Council called on ministers to introduce a tax worth up to £400 million a year to ensure supermarket spending recirculates in local communities. That's the sort of essence of it. What do we think about this?
I personally think it's the most ridiculous tax that you could possibly imagine, because actually, who's going to pay that tax? Well, we are. So it's Big Brother government. It's Big Brother government again saying that we've got to spend our money in a way that they think is appropriate.
But when you've got something like 80% of retail shopping done amongst the big four supermarkets, and you're actually looking at how do you actually keep a vibrant high street, the essence of what they're saying is that local spend should remain in the local area, and at the moment it goes to the big four supermarkets and goes out of an area. So the actual underlying problem is a valid problem. How do you keep Newport Pagnell High Street alive? How do you keep Queensway alive? How do you keep the centre?
Why keep them alive?
Why are you trying to flog a dead horse? Yeah, I mean, you know, it's typical government, isn't it? The horse is dead, let's put money into seeing if we can regenerate it. I mean, the days of the shopping high street are over. What we've got to do, if we're going to regenerate a high street, what you've got to do is make it a vibrant and interesting place for people to go, and you're going to do that by putting more and more hamburger and fast food takeaway places in, and coffee shops.
Specialist type shops.
Specialist shops.
And again,
agents, charity shops, really get it vibrant.
But what these councillors are saying is that we have high streets, we have people who want to actually use them, but we haven't got the infrastructure that supports that. How do you actually get the money to provide the support for the infrastructure. When we were allowing the planning permission for Tesco's in Wolverton, part of the money that was from that was about making sure that Wolverton was a vibrant area. So you can do it, but there are ways of doing it. And what they're saying is that supermarkets have a duty to the area in which they're getting their money from.
Yeah, but this exists at the moment at any rate, doesn't it? With the
What's the difference in France?
106 money or whatever it's called. You know, it's huh?
You go in France, Montague, you go into small towns and they're all independent businesses. You don't get all the chains like we do of fashion shops and burger bars, or the burger bars like McDonald's are outside, aren't they, on the industrial estates? Generally.
Well, they are, yes, but I mean,
but they haven't got. They've got a lot more, I think, independent one-man band type traders, shopkeepers, than we have. All our shopkeepers are getting pushed out, aren't they?
There's no money in keeping shops in the high street. It's very difficult. I've got friends who've got shops, and they're really struggling to make ends meet because
because the supermarkets are selling everything.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just the supermarkets. It's online.
Also, Tesco's are about to sell houses, aren't they now? Getting into the housing market.
Well, I'm sure Tesco's would sell frogs if they thought.
Given the drop in Tesco's profits this month,
I'm sure they would. But it's not the supermarkets that are actually the big killer of the high streets. I believe it's the online retailers that are really killing the high street, because you used to go to your specialist shops. Now you go to your specialist website.
But the high streets were dying long before the internet came on.
Yes, they were, and then the internet has just accelerated the process.
Well, actually, no. The internet can actually be the friend of the high street if it's done properly. And I think because you actually open your market as a small business to a lot wider range of people. So if you do it properly, you can actually get a better return.
Why would a trader, if I was a trader in, let's just say, I don't know, garden furniture, why would I put a high street retail outlet together when I could actually save all those overheads and just sell directly to the public over the internet? And why would I restrict myself to that locality, just that one little area? So the obvious place for me to go is the internet now.
But it's not an either or. It's about how do you get the best of both. Having a place where you can actually see the things you're buying is actually a great way. And a lot of people do that.
They go into shops also and look at the price. They go online, don't they?
And they do the reverse. They go online. They compare all the prices, and then they go to actually see.
There was a well-known retailer in Newport Pagnell High Street that sold basically white goods and furniture, called Buywise. I spoke to the guy there, and he said it's just a waste of my time. He said people come in, they go through the different fridges that I've got, they go through the different bits of white goods that I've got, and then they go home and order it online. It basically is an unpaid showroom for online retailers. And there's no money in it anymore. He's closed now, he's shut down. He said there was no point in him continuing. And he'd been in Newport Pagnell for years.
It's a great shame, because I have bought stuff from it. I bought dishwashers and all sorts of things.
But again,
Roy Pink's Roy Pink's bike shop is now.
But again, one of the things is you can't stand still. You've actually got to adapt to the fact the internet exists. The question is, how do you actually live in a world of the internet? Now, you can either give up and say, well, it's too difficult, or you can adapt and find ways of actually making sure that the locality is an attractive place for people to come and buy things.
The argument is that it's this age difference, age and technology, which are not going to hand in hand together, because the older generation, the people that remember the high street and remember when I first moved into Newport 37 years ago, I couldn't walk down the high street without, it used to take me 10-15 minutes because you were talking to everybody and you were chatting, hello, and all this stuff. Now I can walk down there and I hardly know anybody, But again, it's all changed now, because you don't. It's easier to go and use technology to actually purchase what you want, and a
lot of people will go out to Newport to one of the supermarkets.
Well, they do, and that's Milton Keynes has got some several large shopping areas which are very convenient for people, and you take your one car there, and
it's been designed that way.
It's been designed that way, exactly. So one could say, well, Milton Keynes is designed. I mean, Milton Keynes hasn't in itself got a high street. It has a major shopping centre, which is absolutely fantastic, but it's not a high street.
And again, it's got to move forward, otherwise it's going to go backwards.
Well, this
I think it's time to go backwards, because you see now when you go up there, once upon a time you could never get a parking space, particularly on a Friday, but now there's an abundance of parking spaces.
Well, that's because they've improved the bus services.
Do you think so?
No, I think it's because...
I think it's because they're charging too much for parking. And the problem is you don't know how long you're going to be there for, so you tend to overpay, don't you?
I mean, the basic reason was the recession.
Yes, well, of course it is, yeah,
and,
but we're meant to be out of this now.
Oh, are we? Oh, right. I hadn't noticed.
Your party says not, but other parties say yes. Balls is trying to discredit this, isn't he?
You just made the point about the shops in the centre that with some of them being boarded up.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So, but we're coming back to this argument about how do you actually get vibrancy into a high street, into a shopping area. You can either say the internet's going to take everything, or you can say, no, there is a role for a high street, there is a role for a centre like MK, and actually make sure that we're planning for that for the future.
But we've done that. We've had the Mary Portis initiative, where she's had her high streets, and they've all failed.
No, they haven't.
They have.
It's not and again, it's not a one-off. This is a...
They've not succeeded. Well, okay, they've not succeeded, which is slightly different from failing.
There is a...
In political speak,
one of the things that annoys me is that people say, oh, it's... You've got to do something, and then it's a one-off, and it's suddenly we're into nirvana. It isn't. It's a process that is ongoing all the time. You keep adapting to circumstances, and you keep improving. You keep actually making sure that the infrastructure supports what local people want. Local people want to be able to shop locally, and they want to be able to shop physically, and they want to be able to shop online. And there's nothing wrong with all three.
Butchers and good bakers and people like that, and candlestick makers, but you're not getting them now because they're all closing down because people are buying their stuff from the supermarkets, which, but
even the supermarkets themselves are beginning now, because you can go online shopping around. You go around the supermarket on your PC screen, and you sit there and they deliver it to you.
You say that, but farmers' markets are coming back, and they're actually increasing across the country. So you're actually getting people going to farmers' markets, which are actually taking the place of what some butchers used to be. So again, it's about adapting and changing, and making sure that we actually have the ability to...
It could be the novelty factor, though, couldn't it, of the farmers' market syndrome?
Because it's once a month in Newport Pagnell, there's a farmers' market, and on a Friday morning for a few hours there's a farmers' market, and I've never seen it particularly busy.
They do it in Olney, but Olney's got the market square for it. We haven't got in Newport Pagnell the market square as such. But
Olney, there was only about 6 stalls there.
There's only about 10 or 12 at the most. No, but in Olney, their farmers market is very well attended.
Yeah,
on a Thursday, I think it is. That's right. But again, it's but that's that's the farmers market. It's not the high street.
You got a market in Bletchley on Queensway, which actually works really well. So again, it's about
Milton Keynes does, isn't it?
Milton Keynes market works really well. But again, it's about making sure that you're constantly moving forward. You're constantly actually looking at what it's going to be like in 2, 3, 4 years' time, and providing the infrastructure. And that's what those councils were saying is, how do we fund those improvements that are actually going to support our town and our city in the years to come? This may not be the answer, but it is at least them thinking about it and making sure that
one of the ways we can do that is by actually making the rates on the shop sensible. Because the councils have squeezed the shopkeepers, and the rates you have to pay to have a legitimate shop. I'm not talking about charity shop, because they get their discounted rates.
But rates are set nationally.
The
business rate was nationalised by Michael Heseltine in 1992, and actually is set. If you look at the amount of money that is raised in Milton Keynes, it goes to the government. We get a fraction of it back. And again, if the business rate in each of these towns was there for the development of that town, you wouldn't be talking about issues like this. It's because the government actually takes all the business rate and then puts it into the general coffers, rather than using it for the development of...
It should be localised, shouldn't it? But you see, in my industry, there used to be an abundance of photographers in the high street. There's not anymore, because you can't afford to have shops anymore, studios. It was a constant struggle to
the rates are
to survive.
Outrageous.
Well, yeah, it was rates and it was rents as well. Don't forget rents.
Rents.
They've gone through the roof. They'd sooner have a shop left empty, wouldn't they? Presumably because they get tax benefits on it.
Well, you get tax break and your investment is increasing because the value of the property is going up.
But again, you're talking about the profession that you were in photography, but that technology has moved that on, because
very much.
You shoot and snap and that's it, isn't it? And when you consider that, I don't know how much it is for a wedding photographer now, but I think you've got to be talking about thousands,
and the rest.
And the rest.
Yeah, but the albums we were selling were like £600 to trade. Because they're all handmade, that's what people wanted.
Yeah, I know, but it's you can still go out and you can, you can snap away with your camera, with your little Pentax camera, digitally.
Well, your phone,
which is
your phone. People are shooting on phones.
And you can go to Costco's and you can get them made up onto canvas and things like that as well. It's just ridiculous. So I don't know.
Technology's killed so many industries, isn't it? Really.
Milton Keynes do a citizenship ceremony every couple of weeks, and so people come along. But there's an official photographer there, Richard Hedge, and he's really good. And but lots of people were quite willing to pay for his official portrait, in addition to. And they all had their mobile phones, and they all took the pictures with the mayor or whoever the dignitary was, and they did it on the phone. But they also wanted that official recognition, and so I think there is still a demand for it, but it's a difficulty, and it's about finding the right way forward.
It's a very small demand, isn't it?
Compared to what it was,
there are hundreds of jobs like that, but over time, people are doing their own. And
what I'm saying is that people want, at special events, people still want somebody else to come in and take the film.
They do, but it was diminishing. The wedding market just fell apart. It really did, because people were getting friends to do it, and the magazines weren't helping. The bridal magazines were promoting how to save money on your weddings, and of course. The things they didn't say, cut down on the cost of the bride's dress, because that would affect their main advertiser. Don't cut down on your venue, because again they're big advertisers. Don't cut down on the honeymoon, but get your uncle to drive the car, get an aunt to make the cake, and a friend to do the flowers, and the photographer could be Uncle Fred.
Well, Uncle Fred has now got a camera that is far superior to anything a professional photographer had just a few years ago.
Well, absolutely right.
This is the thing, isn't
absolutely it? Absolutely right. Yeah. My first digital camera cost nearly $5,000, and it's a heap of muck, really, compared to what you get now for a lot.
Again, you can either moan about that, or you can celebrate it and use it to the fact that we improve our lives.
I'm not sure that
I'm not so sure we're improving our lives. Because if you see some of the wedding photography that's out there now that's done by Uncle Fred, it's absolutely awful, and people are losing their friends over what they're giving them.
I'll tell you what, let's improve our lives a little bit, because it's 25 minutes past 9 o'clock here in Milton Keynes. We've only got a little while left on the show.
Hi, this is Mike Johnson, your conductor for the gospel train Sweet Inspiration. You can get on board every Saturday between 4 and 6 p.m. online at seclosounds.org. I'll be taking you on a journey through the many forms of gospel music, and we'll stop by the church on the way. That's Sweet Inspiration with me, Mike Johnson, every Saturday between 4 and 6 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
Yes, the 1980s are back.
Hi, I'm Dave and I play the music from the 1980s.
Hi, I'm Charlotte and I play the music from the 1990s.
Classic 90s grooves.
So join us each and every Saturday between 10 and midday.
For double decades on Seclo Sounds. Seclo Sounds.
Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll
Hey, this is Gerald Albright, and you're listening to the best community radio station for Milton Keynes, Seclo Sounds.
Think about it.
There we go, seclosounds.org, and that's what you're listening to this morning. Very warm welcome to you. If you've only just joined us, you've got half an hour left of the show. We are the Grumpy Old Men on a Saturday morning. I'm Mike Barry.
I'm Bob Bluffield.
I'm Brian White.
And I'm Alan Mallyon.
And there we go, we're having a grump. Listen, this is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Bumping fists, which seems to be the latest thing now.
What?
When you meet people, you don't shake their hands anymore, you bump the fists like that, like the high fives, but it's not a high five, but it's fist bumping. Have you not seen it? People go and they
I thought so. You greeted people in Belfast on a Friday night.
yes, and in Scotland as well. That's a Glaswegian kiss, isn't it?
That's a headbutt. isn't it?
Wearing rubber gloves spread with a layer of potentially lethal E. coli bacteria, boffins exchange handshakes, high fives, and fist bumps before working out which was the cleanest. Well, their findings, which were published in the American Journal of Infection Control, were that more bugs are passed on by the handshake. Contamination was under half with a high five and 90% less with a fist bump. So Dr. David Whitworth of Aberystwyth University said that the bump was more hygienic due to its smaller contact area. He's a very clever man.
So the Japanese and Chinese bowing is actually the best way of greeting people.
Well, that's right.
I think it must be.
Well,
Yeah,
you've got to be careful because there's a degree of bowing if you're Japanese.
in the Japanese, yes.
If you're lower, the lower ranks, you bow almost to the ground, don't you? To your superior.
I had that.
Yes.
Yeah, I had that when I met when I was the mayor. I don't know whether you met the Japanese people, but I did. And you know, so you bow to them, you know, and then they bow to you. So you bow back again. 20 minutes later, you have it bang your head on the floor.
That's like being in France and knowing how many times to kiss on the cheek.
5 times.
Yeah.
Much too. 5 times.
It depends.
3 times.
It depends which part of France you are.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true because I did this to the young lady who runs the hotel I go to, and she said, no, it's 3 times. Yeah.
A lady.
Yeah.
Well, see, 3 times. Oh, never mind.
3 times a lady.
Yes. Yes.
That's where it comes from.
I'm going to use this rather peculiar word. I think fracking.
Yeah.
Yes, you did hear me right. Fracking. It's not a swear word. Apparently, it's a method used to extract gas from the earth.
Well, we discussed it before. Yeah. Regular listeners to this show.
It's coming on board now, though, isn't it?
Well, Germany's just banned it.
Have they?
Yeah, Germany came out and said no fracking at all.
Oh, they're not fracking to Germany.
What are they up to then? What's the secret here?
Well, I don't know what the Germans are up to, but fracking has got to be a patriotic thing as far as I'm concerned. We've got to cut down our dependence on particularly Middle Eastern oil and Russian gas.
Well, the way things are going, yeah.
And fracking is going to give us the energy we need for the next 20 to 30 years, so we've got to pursue it. And those people that are sort of anti-fracking, they're going to be anti-anything. They're professional antis. We've got a country full of... I'll tell you what, if somebody decided that, I don't know, recycling newspapers, somebody'd be against it.
Well, I used to run a bioenergy company, and suddenly, from biofuels being a solution to a lot of things, a number of those people came out and said, "Oh, biofuels is terrible."
Yeah.
And suddenly, what was perfectly reasonable reuse of chip fat and things like that to run cars suddenly became the worst thing you ever did.
Yeah, if you want a definition of the word hypocrisy, you have to join Friends of the Earth, and
that's rubbish.
One minute they're in favour of nuclear power, and the next minute they're not. They just never stop. They go round in circles. They don't know what's good for them.
That's because they're friends of the Earth, so they want to be friendly with everybody. See, you can't get away from that.
You can't get away with that, Alan.
Well, I can.
I'm not falling into the trap that you're setting for me, but you just cannot get away with that.
You've got to remember, he's a skilled politician.
Yes,
He was.
We've come across skilled politicians
He was.
before. And little traps are always going to catch people out. But no, I mean, there is a lot of... people blow hot and cold about this global warming for a start. I mean, what is going on there? 1 minute, the doom and gloom merchants seem to have the floor. The next minute, it's all made up. It's not real.
Well, I've never known a climate scientist who's actually not come to the conclusion that the increase in Earth's temperature is partly man-made. Therefore, the consequences of that are actually down to some of the things that we've actually done and could actually, by changing, affect the future of the planet.
But I think we doth sort of place ourselves at a higher level of importance as far as the planet's concerned than it actually warrants. I mean, yes, a blind man can see that if we carry on burning fossil fuels and putting so much smoke into the atmosphere, that's not a good thing. Anybody can see that. But, the planet changes all by itself. We've had ice ages. That wasn't man's intervention.
But the point, Alan,
because of man, do they?
But the point is that if you take that natural background of change, over and above that, there is actually evidence that we are making a significant difference, and it only requires a 1 or 2 degree rise in temperatures to cause major problems in coastal areas with the rise of sea levels, and most cities around the world, most high dense populations are on sea level, and therefore has a major implication for a number of places around the world, but particularly if you come to the UK, a lot of our population is in coastal and flood areas, and therefore you actually have an issue about how you deal with it.
So one could argue that global warming is good to help bring down property prices, particularly on the coast.
Did the 1952 flood in Canvey Island, was that caused by man, by global warming? Or was that a natural occurrence then?
I don't know. Is that before or behind the Thames flood barrier?
Oh, it's before.
It's what gave rise to the Thames barrier. But then again, by the fact that we had the Thames barrier, a number of subsequent flooding didn't happen. And one of the dangers we've got now is because it hasn't happened since Canvey, because we've actually put the defences in place, people assume it won't happen. And the danger is that it will happen in a catastrophic way. So we need to be vigilant. We need to actually have the proper defences in place.
But the jet stream's only got to move by a couple of miles, and we end up with a weather that is just completely and utterly different from the previous year. So we ended up, because the jet stream moved a couple of years ago, we had every day was raining.
They explain that on TV because we're in a unique position here because we're affected by 3 or 4, I think it's 4 different weather fronts. We're the only country in the world apparently that gets it.
The Gulf Stream, the jet stream,
and the tropics,
all sorts of other effects. And these effects are much bigger than
anything. Man doesn't alter the jet stream, does he?
No. And
that's not true, because if you actually
cut more trees down,
if you actually
if
you're actually melting the
surely.
ice caps,
Yeah.
then what happens is that the Gulf Stream
Pushes it down.
changes the direction.
Yeah.
So you can actually alter the jet stream position. May not alter its velocity, etc., but you actually alter its position.
There's been an interesting programme on about this on, I think it's on BBC. I've got to watch it. I've seen the first one. Very interesting. You've got to watch it a few times to understand it, I think. But they go up in an airship into the clouds and God knows what. It's quite fascinating.
The whole thing about climate change is fascinating, but I just think we grossly overrate our ability to be able to actually change the climate. I mean, we do know that we could actually go for a whole variety of things that we could actually do that would have an effect on the climate, but there's such dramatically huge engineering projects that they're unlikely to ever happen. We can take carbon out of the atmosphere. We can do that on a massive scale, and that would be massive human intervention. I think it's a very dangerous game the minute we start playing with that. What we've got to do is stop polluting the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels.
Yeah, there's interest on this
If you're in a car heading for a cliff, you change direction. And that's what we need to do, is just change direction. You don't change it with a violent turn. You do it by a whole series of changes, all little changes which add up to a major change.
I had a conversation with a Friends of the Earth person once about cars.
You managed a conversation with a Friends of the Earth person?
Yes, I did. And they were telling me how you've got to stop car journeys because it's polluting the planet and everything else. And I said, well, what about electric cars? I said, surely I could actually drive around in my electric car without polluting the planet. And they're going, yes. And I said, well, on the one hand, you're saying that actually you can't have personal transport because it's polluting the planet. But actually, if you come up with a pollution-free form of personal transport, what's wrong with that? And in fact, they found it very difficult to justify the position on it.
But again, if you actually look at the pollution that's going on and the fact that we are actually designing cities that accommodate a massive number of cars, when we used to actually have transport systems that got mass transport systems. It's easy for you to say. But if you actually look at that, you're actually creating sprawl, which actually is taking away agricultural areas, it's taking away flood defence areas, natural flood defences. So you actually do have to look at it in the whole, not just an individual item.
I agree with you, but if you fly over the...
Not the medieval one, but the book by, I think it's Rattray Taylor, is it? Very interesting, because this is written in the 50s and it predicts all the things that are happening now because of climate change and whatever.
But if you look at the way in which we actually do treat housing and population growth, I mean, there is no shortage of land in this country.
No, when you fly over it, it's unbelievable.
You fly over this country and there's miles and miles and miles of unpopulated land.
Owned by very, very few people.
Yeah, you have a job finding the towns, don't you?
Yeah, and so this elite group of human beings have decided that they're going to live in these wonderful open spaces and the rest of us are going to be compressed into our little hovels.
Well, it's always been the way, isn't it, with the landowners?
Well, it pretty well has been the way, and they put up this green belt to defend themselves against these sprawling masses of the urban environment.
What do you think of this then? Because I'm getting bored with that now. In the early hours of
sorry, listeners.
In the early hours of Tuesday last week, 28. This tickles me to death. 28 illegal immigrants were detained in Calais. After smuggling themselves out of Britain. Okay? They smuggled themselves out of Britain and they were detained. Now, unfortunately, our agreement with the French authorities meant that we've got to take them back. So they were promptly returned to Dover for questioning and possible deportation.
Wait a minute, the French don't take them back when they come aboard out the lorries from there, do they?
But that's the agreement that we had with them.
Yeah.
Only one way agreement.
No, it's an agreement that they would be returned to the country of origin.
Yes. So they come from Britain, so the French send them back to Britain. I mean, this is just a joke. I mean, it's a joke for a start. The 28 illegal immigrants, they actually left Britain. I mean,
and I think there will be more and more people trying to get out of Britain, particularly people from the sort of Midlands. You can imagine that they're just saying, no, I'll give up the ghost. I want to go and live somewhere sensible like Bangladesh.
Because you've got no shops left in the high street.
No shopping in the high street.
Bangladesh high street is plenty.
Yeah, and if you go out there,
There's no Indian takeaways.
You can start a new life.
No Indian takeaways in Bangladesh high street because they're all here.
Well, this is it, but isn't it diabolical, that we can even allow the French to do this,
Yeah, well, there's a lot of controversy going on at Calais at the moment because they're boarding lorries and the police are obviously turning the blind eye. They're filming this now. It's there have been some arrests.
If you've seen some of the films on Facebook, and
yes.
I mean, they're just it's actually quite scary for the
because
drivers.
They're getting quite violent.
The drivers are getting beaten up in that.
That's right.
But again, it comes down to if you want the authorities to take action, they were taking action, and if you cut the border staff, as this government has, you don't have the resources to do it. And if you pay people in the border agency 500 quid above minimum wage, which a lot of them are on, then you start to see, well, why are we actually not having the proper defences? Because we're not prepared to put the resources into doing it.
I couldn't agree with you more, Brian. I think we should double the resources and pay them a sensible amount of money.
Right. But then it's the French that let them out. The French are doing nothing about the attacks on the British truck drivers.
But again,
they should be.
We have a Foreign Office that should be actually taking up those issues with the French government. That's what's happened in the past, and that's what should happen now.
That's the French, they are, and the French aren't listening.
But
Wants to. We should send them a letter.
I'm not sure that Philip Hammond understands the issue, but that's another issue.
Oh, that is another issue. This is another issue as well, which I can't.
Makes your blood boil, Michael.
Well,
Makes your blood boil.
Listen, I can't get my head around this because the grieving father of the drummer Lee Rigby has condemned the £212,000 legal aid which was handed to his murderers as disgusting.
I think so too. Just chop their heads off. Do what
that was a classic case where people had videoed on their camera. These two brutal guys killing this soldier and actually murdering him on the spot. There was no dispute about it whatsoever at all. So why on earth does the government, presumably the government, us, pay £212,000?
Well, actually, one of the problems.
Why does it cost that much?
But again, one of the things that really worries me about stories like that is that is outrageous, but they use that to justify taking legal aid away from lots of us. So we lose out by the fact that we say, oh, we don't need legal aid, so scrap legal aid. We then lose out because we don't actually get the proper defence.
That's right.
And so it's really important that ordinary people and legal aid is there. It's a fundamental right of this country to actually have a proper justice system where an individual is innocent until proven guilty and they have the representation there to make their case. Otherwise, we're as bad as some of the other countries that just dispense justice on a whim.
I have to agree with you, Brian. I believe that what's happened to the legal aid system in this country is nothing short of an appalling attack on people with low incomes.
Again, it's only the wealthy can take people to court, can't they?
And that's getting worse and worse because of this. I don't know. It's a U-turn on legal aid. We used to. There was a time when you couldn't have any legal aid whatsoever, and then we became a civilised society, and we made it possible for even the lowest paid people in the country to have a fair crack of the whip when it came to the law. And now we've moved back into a Dickensian
it's even worse
state.
If you look at the employment tribunals, they've removed legal aid from that, so you actually have to pay.
Yes.
And even if you've got the best case in the world, the fact that it's going to cost you so much money deters you from actually taking that up. And that is a real fundamental problem for the future. Now, it's only just beginning to be a problem now, but it will be a really fundamental problem
Yeah,
when years come.
there was an awful lot of abuse of the legal issue.
Yeah.
My divorce
But
case.
you sort the abusers out.
Well, exactly.
You don't destroy the whole system.
Well, my divorce case, my ex-wife's solicitor was really abusing it. He dragged it on for 3 years, our divorce case, and he made a hell of a lot of money out of it at the end of the day. And you could see from what was going on exactly what he was up to. Yeah, he got away with it.
Well, it's like industrial tribunals, isn't it? You know, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a necessity for a person to be able to take their case to a tribunal if they feel that they've been unfairly done by. But you know, how many people would just use that as a scapegoat, or used it, because it's difficult to do it now, but used that as a scapegoat to make money out of a company because they've just fallen out with somebody else.
We've gone from one extreme to the other, where it was actually the odds against the company were stacked up there because the employees' rights had overstepped the mark. So it became a standard default setting that if you, for whatever reason, were excluded from your job, you went to an industrial tribunal about it. It was a default setting because it didn't cost anything. Now that it costs £700 as a minimum to really take a case to the industrial tribunal, then it's not happening, and we've gone too far the other way. We're not allowing people who have got a just cause to be able to take that just cause to a tribunal, and that's wrong. So we just do it constantly. Major knee-jerk reactions to be able to deal with problems that just need sorting out a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. And we'd apologise for all the banging and clattering, but that's because Dave and Charlotte are coming into the studio, or will be coming into the studio in a moment or two, to do their 80s and 90s programme, and the rest of the noise is being made by Bob, who's
dismantling the studio.
Who's dismantling the studio. I don't know what it is. I love this remark from there's a lady called Camilla Tomini who writes in the Sunday Express, and she writes, "Replace Paxo with Evan Davis. Get stuffed, BBC." And it has nothing to do, yes, with the fact that Davis is homosexual, dresses like a teenager, and has intimate piercings. What was wrong, she says, with any of the three women on the show, Kirsty Waugh, Emily Matis, or Laura Koonsberg?
Well, you already said about Kirsty
Waugh. It's hard enough having to face the prospect of Newsnight without the Grand Inquisitor in the hot seat, but to replace the grizzly bear with someone as genial as Davis seems to be completely at odds with the programme's ethos. Talk about different gravy. But I mean, she is a lady, you know, and she's entitled to her views, and she can put her views in the Sunday Express because the Sunday Express print them. But
she put them on our page on Facebook.
She could have done, couldn't she? But what a thing to do, eh? I mean, poor old the bloke's gone now.
We don't seem to have female journalists that can do that sort of pressurised Inquisition, Paxman style.
Robin Day still. Remember Robin Day?
Robin Day was fearsome.
When Paxman started, when Paxman started, he was criticised for not being up to it and all the rest of it. And that happens whenever you have somebody who's been there for a number of years. Whoever replaces them is never going to be as good as them until they've been there for. So it's just a normal story that says, well, whoever it was, and it happens to be this Evan guy, but whoever it was isn't going to be good enough.
Yeah, which is, in my opinion, quite a great shame. Really.
I'm still trying to think of a woman who could have taken over that role. Woman journalist. Do we know of any? Thatcher could have done, couldn't she? If she'd have been still.
Well, she wasn't a journalist. She was a politician.
So she was a prime minister. Well, she thought she was a prime minister.
Well, she was.
There are plenty of journalists out there who could do it.
Well, name one.
Carol Thatcher, just to choose somebody off
Carol Thatcher.
Carol Thatcher.
Just to choose somebody to provoke you.
Carol Thatcher. Oh my word!
Oh dear!
Just to wind you lot up.
I was at Heathrow one day and I was picking a mate of mine up and I could hear this voice and it could only have been her. And sure enough, it was. She was just coming back from that programme she was in, that Get in the Jungle thing, Get Me Out of Here.
I think Carol Thatcher and what's the other one? Lisa Tarbuck.
Oh god!
Oh, right,
gorgeous.
I mean, just save me from another hour there.
All right, listen. Fortunately, we've only got about 5 minutes.
See, Alan, you can fall into these traps.
We've got about 5 minutes to go on the programme.
We had some good stories, Lord.
What about this thing?
You've kept us from them.
Yeah.
What?
Your control.
Next week.
Next
Next
week.
week. They'll last.
30 things that we can't live without, eh? What do you guess the number top of the list is?
6.
Telephone.
But we live without it, so, you know.
Number one.
What can we live without?
Bacon and rolls.
Well, I think nowadays it's mobile phones.
Shall we work?
Tea.
We'll work down from the top, all right?
Okay.
Number 30 is, in fact, the BlackBerry. And then it comes down to electric razor, air conditioning.
I can do without an electric razor.
Yeah.
I don't like electric razor.
Yeah.
The digital radio is 27, coffee machine 26.
I couldn't do without that.
Digital radio.
HD TV 25.
HD TV 25.
Don't need that.
Yeah. Electric toothbrush 24.
You've got one
Contact lenses 23, and I couldn't put those in.
No, not could I.
Hair straighteners 22.
I couldn't live without my hair straighteners. Oh, take away my hair straighteners and my day would just be incomplete.
Well, in Brian's case, beard straighteners.
Yeah.
There we go. Number 21 is a Kindle. Excuse me. 20 is a toaster. And coming down, number 19 is a tumble dryer.
Top of the pops.
18 is a printer. 17 is Facebook. 16 satnav. 15 is an iPhone. 14 is catch-up TV. Blimey, what's that? 13 is an iPad. 12 is glasses. That's a silly thing.
Well, drinking glasses.
I can't live without glasses. Number 11 is double glazed windows.
Got that.
And number 10, drum roll for number.
Drum roll.
Thank you.
What's this for?
Thank you. Right, number 10. Number 10 in the 30 things that we can't live without rather, is satellite TV. Number 9 is a kettle for making the tea, of course. Number 8 a dishwasher. Number 7 a microwave. Number 6 is a freezer. Number 5 is a fridge. Number 4 is email. Number 3 is a washing machine. Number 2 is the internet.
And a drum roll for number 1. Here it comes.
So the pops this week is
broadband.
Well, pretty well. Yeah.
I'm sure the high streets could do without that.
Yeah.
There we go. You see,
we must tell that porter lady that the high streets need broadband.
What about cars?
They do need broadband.
Cars didn't into that, did they?
Cars didn't come into that at all. No. Probably.
I think that was a poor list. Myself.
Toilets. What about toilets?
Yes.
No.
Imagine
You
life
can't
without
live
a
without a
toilet.
toilet, can you?
No.
Just come.
We've all got to go.
Food. What about
Or
food?
a home.
Yeah.
Beer.
Yeah, beer.
Home? Oh, a shoebox at the bottom of the road. How about you?
It's generating to
This programme's going downhill.
I actually watched that Monty.
Since we had Brian on there, isn't it?
I watched that Monty Python TV, and I was so disappointed. It just reminded me how hit and miss Monty Python was. We all remember the really good things. We forget all the really bad things that they did. So, and I was really disappointed with it.
It's a little bit like Monty Python's Marmite again, though, isn't it? You know, I mean, it's what
Marmite.
No, I like
it. Or you don't.
Yesterday.
I do like Monty Python, but it's just that the links seem to
no, you don't.
I mean,
Is this a 5-minute argument, Brian?
Brian, you've got to pay for your arguments if you want them properly.
Oh, no, you don't.
Oh, yes, you do.
You
I
don't?
paid 7 and 6pence for this argument. I think I want value for money.
I think this is an
I'm not arguing.
If
You
I
take your
cease
time.
to be.
Do you know,
I know I've had my time, but I want to continue the
it's
argument.
wonderful, you know, because I can just fade their microphones down and just talk to you on my own, you see, which is great. Because Dave and Charlotte coming up with you after the news at 10 o'clock. They're carrying on in the background. This is the Grumpy Old Men show, right? Hang on. We've got to say goodbye, gentlemen, because it's
Goodbye, gentlemen, and goodbye, ladies.
All right, we'll see you next week. And don't forget, of course, that if you want a chance to listen to this show again,
Back on Friday.
I don't know anybody.
12 o'clock news Friday is repeated.
It's 12 o'clock on Friday, isn't it? You know, so 12 o'clock on Friday, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, dokie.
That's noon, not midnight.
That's noon, not midnight. Yeah. Okay, doke. Have yourself a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Me.